Katherine Leach is the chief plaintiff in this case, and she reached out to me personally because she watched this entire interview and downloaded the transcript and wanted to add context to our conversation because as the chief plaintiff, she has a lot more insight into this case, and I think it makes for a much more interesting look at what's actually happening. We had a video interview recently with attorney Vanessa Johnson, and we had her on the show because she was discussing what we believe is a landmark case that's going to set legal precedent for megachurches in the United States and religious liberty in this country. Just to kind of catch you up, and I recommend going back to this video. Katherine Leach filed a lawsuit along the lines of RICO charges. And I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to be able to explain it the way that Vanessa did. But essentially, what's taken place is Katherine Leach and about another, looks like a following the recent denial of a Gateway Church's motion to dismiss on September 17, 2025, U.S. Eastern District of Texas Chief District Judge added a RICO claim to the class action lawsuit against Robert Morris and Gateway Church for their handling of the Cindy Clemenshire case, as well as just this allegation that they are involved in racketeering because they did not make good on their promises with the tithe money. They promised that they would give a certain percentage, and it fell far from underneath that. That was exposed by a CPA. So now this is a lawsuit in court. The RICO charges is what got our attention because now we're looking at churches as criminal enterprises that are parading as churches and ministries, as opposed to what we thought what this was before, which were good faith actors operating churches that had moral failures. So there's a huge distinction, and this is the reason why this is such an interesting story. So go ahead and run the clip of Vanessa Johnson explaining that this case took on a whole new meaning when the RICO charges were added. Run the clip, please.
Okay. So RICO charges, that law came into existence, I think, in the 70s. It was created because of mafia and, to thwart the organized crime and the corruption and things like that. But since then, it's been codified. There's a criminal statute, and it's also used civilly. So
Katherine emailed me and wanted to explain how the RICO how the RICO applied to this class action lawsuit, and she wanted to point to one example in the case that states defendants devised and intended to devise a scheme to defraud plaintiffs and the punitive class by falsely representing that 15% of all tithe dollars would be distributed to global missions and Jewish ministry partners, and that tithers could receive a return of their tithes for any reason, end quote. So this is the linchpin for the RICO charges, because according to the law, if you are making these types of promises and then you're extending this beyond state lines twice in 10 years, you solidly fall within the RICO purview. Katherine also goes on to explain that this also relates to the letter that she wrote and sent to Gateway Church leadership on September 9th, 2024, which we have on the screen right here. Additionally, plaintiffs point out that if a thorough financial audit had truly been performed at Gateway Church, it may have uncovered past fraud that, according to Tom Lane, former senior executive pastor to Robert Morris, occurred against Gateway when West Africa Initiative defrauded the church in the amount of $750,000. After an amended lawsuit was filed on October 18, 2024, she verified and shared the following information regarding WAI, including details involving one of their board of directors, former Gateway Church elder and executive global missions pastor Kevin Grove, which we have here on the screen right there. According to a recent online search, it appears WAI remains currently active, and Grove also appears to still be connected to Gateway Church via their school, the King's University. Although Kevin Grove and Tom Lane are not officially listed as defendants, they are most certainly still named in this filing and are still connected to this case through a tolling agreement. Now, Katherine also wanted to add context to this next clip. Run the clip.
what it allows the plaintiffs to get if they succeed is triple damages and their attorney's fees paid.
Katherine states that although triple damages can be awarded. Money is not the focus of the plaintiffs in this case. This class action was filed as a last resort in response to Gateway Church's refusal to provide financial transparency or honor their money back guarantee.
Asserting is that it's a pattern of racketeering activity, and they're saying that it was done through mail or wire. So things like it can be emails, it can be text messages, it can be anything that's, on the phone, or even, just through the mail, the regular mail, which people don't usually use anymore. It could be email, obviously.
Katherine wanted me to add that Gateway Church stated they have a reach of 190 plus countries and over 100,000 attendees. So yes, the issue does cross state lines, and she would even argue far beyond our country's borders.
This group of plaintiffs, which are the congregants, some of them, it's a class action. So there's a couple of named plaintiffs, but there's a whole group of people that have been harmed. Okay.
Katherine wanted to let us all know that there are also hundreds of additional individuals listed as class members, but they have chosen to remain anonymous. So even though there are 4 named plaintiffs in the case, including Katherine, there's hundreds. So I think the implication here is that this is much bigger than just 4 individuals. This case is much bigger than just what it appears to be on the surface.
That were induced, they were asked to give money for certain things, missions, other things, that those tithes, 15% of what they gathered was supposed to go to these certain, missions, and it didn't happen.
Gateway Church, Robert Morris, Tom Lane all promised that 15% of all tithes would go to mission work. And here we have some clips of Robert Morris making that promise.
But we just decided we give 15% of everything that you give anyway to missions. So, we've given $1 million gifts to many ministries, many times, because you are so generous.
Welcome to Gateway's Global Weekend. When you give your tithe to the Lord here, 15% or 15 cents of every dollar goes to support our global ministry and enable the impact to extend across the globe.
And here we have John Wilbanks, an elder at Gateway Church, explaining the situation.
Gateway has averaged approximately 19% in giving to global missions. Gateway has had independently audited financial statements since 2005. The firm who performs our audit is a nationally recognized auditing firm for nonprofit organizations. The name of that firm is Cape and Krause. These audits have demonstrated that our finances are managed consistent with best practices, and we have never had any wrongdoing revealed through these audits.
Last year, an assertion was made that this commitment had not been met, and that less than 15% of donations were actually provided to the work of global missions. We take these matters seriously, and we are committed to ensuring financial integrity for our entire church family. To help ensure independence and accountability, the elders tasked Haynes & Boone Law Firm to retain the financial accounting and auditing firm Baker Tilly to conduct a thorough and independent inquiry into this assertion. That inquiry is complete, and I'm very pleased to report to you that our church has consistently gone beyond the 15% commitment. So the assertion that we have not met our commitment was and is false.
From the pulpit, Robert Morris said that, hey, if you're not satisfied, you can just ask for your tithes back.
I'm going to make you a deal. All right? You tithe for the rest of this year to Gateway Church, and if you're not fully satisfied, I'll give you your money back. I'll give you your money back. I'll give you your money back.
I will give you your money back. I will give you your money back.
At the end of that year, I'll give you your money back.
Yes, Robert Morris said this way more than once. Ms. Leach said that he's been making this promise and guarantee for the last 24 years and the entirety of his time at Gateway. And at no point in time did Gateway Church ever object to him doing so. She outlines this reasoning further in the letter that she sent to Gateway Church in 2024, which includes her motivations behind writing the letter in the first place. And you can read the letter right here on the screen.
Today, I submitted my formal written request to Gateway Church for all tithe monies I have given to date to be returned to me according to their money-back guarantee, as evidenced in the videos below. A copy of my letter to Gateway's contribution team and CC'd to lead Pastor Lorena Valle and Elder Tra Wilbanks is attached. It is important to note that although I cannot claim ownership over something that is not mine to begin with, my request is based on the following. 1. Growing concerns surrounding Gateway Church's handling of God's money as a result of their continued lack of financial transparency and accountability to their tithing congregants and members. 2. My own personal conviction and responsibility to steward everything God provides with excellence, and 3. For the purpose of redirecting my tithes to a church or ministry that is fully committed to financial transparency, good governance, and accountability, whose leaders act in accordance to these biblical principles, and who welcome open dialogue with any inquiring member without hesitation or retaliation. It is also important for me to highlight my primary concern since June 16, 2024, is Gateway Church's gross lack of care shown toward Cindy Clemisher, a fellow sister in Christ, over the course of many years.
So first off, what this class of plaintiffs did first, they wanted to see the financials. They wanted to see, is the money that you've been asking us all these years and saying that 15% per year is going to these certain missionaries, is that in fact happening? They refused to disclose it. And then secondly, when they asked for those tithes back, they refused to give it to them. So they engaged in conversations with the church to try to get these things remedied before taking action, but it didn't happen. So that's why they filed the lawsuit.
Katherine says that she did ask to see the financials on several occasions, and Gateway refused. When they asked to see the church bylaws several times, they also refused. She asked for her money back, not to keep, but to relocate those funds to a church or ministry committed to having financial integrity and operating above reproach. They refused that also. So any accusation that Katherine Leach and these plaintiffs are seeking money out of pure opportunity is BS, because they've given the parameters clearly to Gateway. We're not looking for our money back. We just want you guys to keep good on your promise that you've made for 24 years, and you haven't done so.
They filed an amended complaint, and that's when they added 2 more counts, one of which is the RICO. That's actually the 4th count. And the 3rd count is just a specific count against Robert Morris and Steve Doolin. And it's fraud, intentional and negligent misrepresentation in regard to them.
Katherine Leach stated to me that the initial class action lawsuit was filed on October 4th, 2024. The claims were 1, misrepresentation and fraud and conspiracy between all defendants, and 2, breach of contract and conspiracy to breach of contract. The amended complaint was filed October 13th, 2025, adding 2 claims: fraud, intentional and negligent misrepresentation as to Robert Morris and Steve Dolan individually, and RICO violations, mail fraud and wire fraud against all defendants.
Robert Morris, and now there's only one other guy, Steve Doolin. I'm not sure. He was an elder there.
Katherine Leach wanted me to clarify that Steve Dolan was a founding elder, associate senior pastor, and executive director of Kingdom Business Ministries at Gateway Church. Side note, former New Life Church senior pastor Brady Boyd was also a founding elder of Gateway and considered Robert Morris's right-hand man.
But
and is Tom Lane in that bunch?
Say the name again.
Tom Lane?
So no, he's not. He's mentioned in the pleading. So that's an interesting thing. Let me just share this. When you have RICO, you can allege that people participated in furtherance of whatever it is, the fraudulent activity, the engagement, and they might not be named as defendants. And that's what's happening here. There's only 3 defendants that are listed now. It initially started with 5. Initially, it was Gateway, Robert Morris, Tom Lane, Kevin Grove, and Steve Doolin.
Katherine wanted to make clear that the original defendants listed were Gateway Church, Robert Morris, Steve Dolan, Tom Lane, and Kevin Grove. Although Tom Lane and Kevin Grove were, quote, dismissed without prejudice, they are most certainly still very much connected to this class action lawsuit in the actual pleading, as well as through a tolling agreement, which means they can be officially added back. Concerns regarding Kevin Grove include the following.
Filed Friday, October 18th, 2024. Some of the amendments are as follows. This lawsuit is about transparency and promises, brought by members whose concern is not money in their pockets, but rather exposing fraudulent stewardship. On information and belief, Robert Morris, Thomas M. Lane, Kevin L. Grove, and Steve Doolin, with the knowledge and consent of Gateway elders, have diverted money from global missions and Jewish ministry partners to secret organizations. In the CPA's exit interview, Tom Lane told him about fraud against Gateway that occurred when an organization called the West Africa Initiative, WAI, defrauded the church in the amount of $750,000. The CPA's research unveiled that several Gateway leaders, including Kevin Grove, Ernest Reed Grafke, and Peter Hirsch, may have been on the WAI board of directors. If an audit had truly been performed, it would have uncovered Gateway's engagement with the WAI for supposed ministry project. Recently, Gateway's elder, Tra Wilbanks, told congregants that Gateway has audited financials going back as far as 20 years. Plaintiff's counsel has requested a copy of the audited financials from Gateway's counsel, Ronald Breaux, but no such audited financials have been forthcoming. This class action complaint has been changed from Texas Rule of Civil Procedure 42B3A to Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 23.
Probably still engaging in things like that, where they're asking for tithes. If they're doing any engagement like that over wire, over email, then that would suffice.
I also want to challenge you over and above your tithes. If you are frustrated with what you're seeing in churches, do something about it. Don't just complain. Maybe you need to make the kings a part of your monthly giving in your offerings. You notice I said tithes and then there's offerings. Okay, settle that one down. But there are things that you want to invest in. You invest in a $13 cup of coffee every day. Invest in the kingdom. And so we need your continued prayers. There's so many ways to get involved, and we would love to connect with you out in the booth. There's actually two. So there's one in the children's wing, and there's one also right outside.
Great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah.
So in this particular clip, Katherine Leach wanted to address the fact that Gateway Church is still engaging in asking for these tithes despite the pending lawsuit. And in her deeper research, although Daniel Floyd looks like Gateway's new pastor, she made this discovery of what looks like his past connection to Gateway Church and Robert Morris. In other words, Katherine's alleging that they're just rearranging the chairs in the sinking Titanic. Roll the clip.
One of the good new things that God has been doing at Gateway Church in this new season has been introducing us to some new friends in the body of Christ. And you know, there have been churches and pastors that have prayed for our church that we didn't even know they were praying for us. We didn't even know them. And I'm really honored today to introduce you to one of those friends, new friends to Gateway Church. His name is Pastor Daniel Floyd. He and his wife, Pastor Tammy Floyd, are here with us from Virginia.
Turn your attention to the screen.
Hey, Life Point Church and Pastor Daniel. I want to say hey to everyone and tell you what a great job you guys are doing for the kingdom.
Going back to the church not showing the books, and I also must add that there was a confidentiality clause that was granted to Gateway Church that they wouldn't even make this information public if they presented the books. Is that your understanding of looking at the case? Katherine Leach wanted to say, just like the saying goes, where there's smoke, there's fire. Where there's sexual abuse and the use of NDAs to silence victims, there's financial abuse because NDAs aren't free. There's money involved. And where did that money come from? From donors. Cindy's story confirmed the use of NDAs on the sexual abuse side. The financial abuse component was alleged by the esteemed CPA and former Gateway employee Alan Shoulders. Mr. Shoulders shared more details during his interview with Julie Roys of the Roys Report.
Do you know about Cindy Clemenshire and her father? Also, they have another lawsuit. It's in state court. It's in Texas. And they are suing Gateway and multiple people, as well as Robert Morris, for defamation.
Cindy's civil lawsuit was filed in Dallas County on June 11th, 2025, a day before the anniversary of when she went public with her story. Cindy and her father, Jerry Lee Clemenshire, are plaintiffs. Defendants are as follows. We have Gateway Church, Robert and Debbie Morris, Thomas Miller, the former executive lead team pastor, Tra Wilbanks, longtime and current lead elder, longtime and former executive global missions pastor, Kevin Grove, longtime and former elder, Jeremy Carrasco, longtime and current elder, Kenneth Fambro, longtime and former Church Network Pastor Galen Losh, current elder Dane Miner, longtime and former church spokesperson and executive director of Gateway Media, Lawrence Swicegood, founding elder and former executive pastor of Kingdom Business Leaders Stephen Dolan, and the Robert Morris Evangelistic Association that currently lists Robert and Debbie Morris, Dane Miner, and Steve Dolan as directors, as well as Jimmy Evans and Robert's father, Jurl. And you can read more about the findings in the link in the bio, as well as what you see here on the screen.
Cindy Clemenshire in 2005 or 2007 asking for $50,000. Remember that? She was asking
Yes.
Robert Morris for $50,000 for counseling and he refused to give it to her.
Cindy requested $50,000 to help pay for years of counseling. Instead of living up to being the, quote, most generous church in America, Robert Morris countered Cindy's request by cutting that amount in half to $25,000, and with the condition that she sign a non-disclosure agreement. Thank the Lord that she refused. So let's wrap our heads around this detail for a moment, Catherine's asking us. Donor money and tithes would have gone towards silencing a victim of church sexual abuse. How many other people are being abused and muzzled by NDAs? Let me repeat myself for those in the back. How many other people are being abused and muzzled by non-disclosure agreements? I'd love to get to the bottom of that. Jesus Christ is coming back for a stainless, spotless church. I digress. And I also must add that there was a confidentiality clause that was granted to Gateway Church that they wouldn't even make this information public if they presented the books. Is that your understanding of looking at the case? So even after Katherine and the plaintiffs granted can I start over? Even after Katherine and the plaintiffs were granted Gateway a protective order to keep certain information regarding personal information of donors confidential, Gateway still refused to provide the documents that they asked for. It's been over a year, and they are still waiting to see these so-called independently audited financial statements that Gateway's lead elder and CPA, Tra Wilbanks, keeps referring to. But more than audits, they actually want to see where the money went and how much. Why does Gateway continue to refuse to share that information? What else are they trying to hide? Gateway was very voluntarily proud about their generosity. That's indicated in the recent statement by the elder that they have been very generous church. So Catherine's stating here that that Robert Morris and the Gateway leadership has been constantly positioning themselves in the what I call church marketplace as the highest, most generous giving church in America by twice as much, according to statements made directly by Robert Morris. So Catherine's question is, if that is true, don't you think Gateway would be proud to publicize their financial statements? And that's what I said with Vanessa, that would be consistent with what their public image has always been, and yet that's not what we're getting.
They think that they can get away with a lot. You know, they're used to that. They feel like they don't have any accountability. They don't have to answer to anybody. And that seems to be the theme.
Yeah, it would seem that Gateway has been able to bully people into silence through non-disclosure agreements known as NDAs and potentially other means, and have considered themselves to be above the law prior to June 12th, 2024, when Cindy went public with her case. So Catherine's message is perhaps they've lost sight, them being Gateway, of the fact that they are not above God. He sees all and will not be mocked. Hashtag time's up. RICO lawsuit reeks of institutional corruption. So it takes on a whole new meaning when Gateway Church is alleged to be operating as a criminal enterprise. Katherine Leach says it sure does, doesn't it? It's what she calls the network. Gateway's connections are numerous and their reach is vast. And that's why I'm particularly interested in this case, because as I've been speaking to former employees and former congregates at New Life for the last 6-7 months, I've come to the realization that there is a culture of institutional corruption within the evangelical megachurch world. It's very deep. It's very mafia-like because people are silenced into fear And so what we're doing with this RICO case, what we're doing with what Katherine Leach is doing, and is we're trying to break the dam. We're trying to expose what's been hidden in darkness and be brought to light so that victims can heal and this does not happen again to any other innocent victims.
And they're doing these things. They're inducing people to give tithes, give them money. They're telling them something that's not true. That's what the allegation is. Okay. Remember, that's what those allegations are, that from the pulpit, from that church, various people are telling congregation and other members, give money because it's going to go to this, but it actually didn't go to this. And they could have easily just proved if it really did go to that, they could have just opened up their books and say, here, it did go, but it didn't. And internally with this CPA, he finds that only 3 million went, when if 100 million's coming in by math, logically, it would be 15 million a year, but that's not what they found.
Yeah. So Katherine Leach is saying correct. 15 million should have been going to global missions when the CPA, Ellen Shoulders, only saw approximately 3 million. So the question becomes, where did the other 12 million go? And that's the question that we're not answering today. Yeah, I mean, I think the elephant in the room with regards to this question is that the RICO charges are sniffing around the fact that people suspect that leadership has been enriching themselves while knowingly misleading their congregation. So if that's actually what's happening, could this RICO charge allow the courts to open up the books and expose maybe housing allowances, maybe unreasonable salaries in contrast to the biblical mandates? Maybe we're going to find discretionary forms without labels or called benevolence or ministry-related budgets. Yeah, Katherine Leach totally agrees with me here. She adds, or maybe we'll find the line items where money was allocated to keep people silenced under an abusive NDA, like what could have happened to Cindy had she signed hers. She's been told there are other survivors, but they have chosen not to come forward for personal reasons, which she can understand. There's no shame in them choosing to make that decision for whatever reason they deem necessary. Retaliation from Gateway is real, so we must keep that in mind while we consider all of this. I mean, yeah, I mean, if these are mafias, the mafia does behave a certain way. So these people are scared for a reason. I would be hard pressed to think this is the only case that existed in this man's life, or anyone at that church for that matter.
Very, very difficult to think that she was the only victim just because of, what we know, that typically there's other victims out there. But
Katherine Leach has said, yes, she has been informed that there are other survivors who are choosing to remain anonymous. And that's why we're covering this story, is we need to create an environment and tip the conversation to a point where victims and survivors feel empowered, feel safe to come forward and expose these people. So whether it's through media, whether it's through a legal precedent, however means necessary, guided by the Holy Spirit, our mission here, the Vanessa Johnsons of the world, the Everetts for Ohio for Freedoms, the Julie Roys, all of this is a constellation of people who love Jesus, who want to see justice served and want to stop the abuse of innocence and protect future victims. This is what we're doing here, folks. I wanted to ask you, Vanessa, and we have Vanessa Johnson, attorney, YouTuber, with us today. What an honor to have her. I wanted to ask you, Vanessa, about the defense strategy. Undoubtedly, Gateway's lawyers are going to argue that this is an attack on religious freedom and that these are internal church matters that are protected under free speech laws. How do you expect that to be their primary defense? And if so, how do you expect that to play out in court?
That is going to be their defense, right? Not only are they going to try to knock down every argument that the plaintiffs make, but there are these interest groups, and they will come alongside as much as they can and support the defendants. So I'm going to read for you just a paragraph that's contained in one of these briefs. It was a brief that was filed in support of Gateway Church when Gateway and the other defendants were filing their motions to dismiss the initial complaint from last year. So
Okay.
just so you understand what's happening here, First Liberty Institute. So they are, let me just get what they say they are. They are a nonprofit public interest law firm dedicated to defending and restoring religious liberty. And they provide pro bono legal representation to all institutions of faith. So they're coming alongside Gateway Church to support them, and they're arguing that this case should not go forward because it's going to be harmful to churches, that they're not going to be able to do what they normally do. They're saying that the claim would proceed, if it were to proceed, the complaint would create a dangerous precedent that invites theological disputes to become court disputes and threaten to chill religious speech and exercise.
First Liberty Institute. She discovered this bombshell in January of 2025, which she concludes is a major, hashtag all caps, major conflict of interest. Why would First Liberty submit an amicus in favor of a church harboring a pedophile? Allow me to repeat that. Why would First Liberty submit an amicus in favor of a church who's been proven to harbor a pedophile? Not a good look for First Liberty. So let's take a look at First Liberty. First Liberty is a 501c3 with representatives through the U.S. from California to D.C., and their motto is first in the fight for your religious liberty. Their impressive list of victories at the Supreme Court level shows their dedication to defending Americans of any faith. So they have Coach Kennedy, Sweet Cakes by Melissa, Carson versus Macon.
And they say allowing disgruntled congregants, saying which few churches lack, to haul the church into court because they disagree with its use of their tithes opens a Pandora's box of litigation into every aspect of a church's internal decision making. And in order to preserve the freedom to practice religion, they're asking that this complaint get dismissed. So that is exactly what they're going to be arguing, that it shouldn't be in court, that it has no place in court. These are issues that should be dealt with in church, and saying that these people are all disgruntled congregants. We hear that all the time. I just did a video yesterday on a case. It's the same thing. It's the same argument. That's what they all say, that they're disgruntled. Not that they have a valid concern or a valid case, but that they're just disgruntled.
Disgruntled, yes. Yeah, First Liberty may attempt to minimize our claims and us being Katherine Leach. I'm reading from Katherine Leach's statements. And just for your information, Katherine Leach gave me permission to air this broadcast. However, her attorneys have not cleared her on coming onto the show, which is kind of our way to work around this. So First Liberty, she wanted us to know that First Liberty may attempt to minimize her claims by calling them disgruntled, but that is not going to fly when it comes to the law, and they would and should know this. What First Liberty tries to argue is the First Amendment, separation of church and state, Jason's favorite argument, and the ecclesiastical abstention doctrine. What they did not mention is the fact that the First Amendment does not shield someone from accountability who commits fraud, allegedly, for the lawyers. Allegedly. If they commit fraud, you are not protected by the First Amendment. And that's something that Katherine wants to point out, and I agree. I think that that's a sin of omission on behalf of First Liberty. In this next segment of the show, we're going to present the connections between Robert Morris and Gateway Church and Brady Boyd and New Life Church here in Colorado. Some of the findings regarding the connections between these two organizations, between New Life Church, Brady Boyd, Lance Coles, Brian Newberg and others, and Gateway Church, Robert Morris, Tom Lane and others, and what appears to be a deliberate cover-up of Cindy's story. In her opinion, New Life Church, Brady Boyd, and others are not completely off the hook quite yet. She will be sharing new findings on Brady Boyd in the coming days and weeks. She also added that it would seem Tom Lane was the primary liaison between Gateway Church and New Life Church during this period of time. Lane went on to be an overseer of New Life Church, Colorado, alongside Robert Morris and Jimmy Evans. This also involves Larry Stockstill, who she mentions in the content that we're going to see here in a moment. Cindy's sister, Cindy Clemenshire's sister, Karen Clemenshire, and this is the big story, and we've covered this at length with Julie Roys and Everett, but it's worth repeating here that the Clemenshire family, specifically Karen, went to New Life Church leadership and told them every detail about what Robert Morris did to her sister when she was a little girl before New Life's pastoral selection committee voted to install Brady Boyd as their new senior pastor. Unbeknownst to NLC, Gateway Church, or Robert Morris and others, Karen was a congregant at New Life. When she heard Brady was coming from Gateway, she immediately called for a meeting with leadership. In the end, New Life Church chose to believe Gateway Church's Tom Lane rather than the direct testimony of Cindy's own sister, Karen Clemenshire. Make that make sense.
Now to a story that is still developing tonight. Evangelical pastor Ted Haggard was forced to resign today as the head of the New Life Church in Colorado Springs.
And we reached a decision yesterday morning through much travail and prayer that it was our job not to discipline and restore, but to dismiss Pastor Ted permanently from the senior pastor leadership of this church. Now our job is to help you to move forward into another direction, and that is the selection of a new leader for you moving into a new season of this church. This new leader that the Lord will show is going to bring us into another level of destiny as New Life Church. Can I have an amen to that?
So 9 of us began seeking the Lord. You know, what's next for New Life? Who's the next pastor?
I hear about this guy named Brady Boyd down in Texas. It was early on, I kind of got in on like this email thread that said, here's some like videos of some of these people preaching. And the first one I opened was Brady Boyd. And I immediately just thought, that's who we need.
It became clear to us that Brady and Pam were to be the next pastors of New Life.
Well, good morning. My name is Brady Boyd. I'm your new senior pastor.
According to newly discovered archived documents signed off by New Life Church Secretary and Treasurer Brad Falentine, the official New Life Church Senior Pastoral Selection Committee members from November 20th, 2007 were as follows: John Bolin, Lance Coles, Gary Larson, Thelma Miller, Mary Napier, Brian Newberg, Ross Parsley, Beverly Peags, Joseph Winger. An additional archived document confirms Pastor Larry Stockstill from Bethany World Prayer Center in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, was New Life Church's lead overseer at the time, alongside Pastor Mike Ware from Victory Church in Denver, Colorado, Pastor Mark Cowart from Church for All Nations in Colorado Springs, Pastor Tim Rao from New Covenant Fellowship in Larkspur.
He will have to register as a sex offender as part of this. We have been covering this criminal case since March, when Morris was indicted on 5 counts of lewd or indecent acts with a child for molesting a young girl here in Oklahoma 4 decades ago. He faced up to 20 years in prison for each of those 5 charges.
In this email uncovered in New Life's archives, Lance Coles thanks Karen Black for informing the selection committee of what Robert Morris had done to her sister.
Has come up is, what about the search committee? What legal responsibility do they have in this for not saying more about it or not raising more of a red flag? And 2 members of that search committee still serve on our staff. So is there any kind of a consequence for them? Are they going to be asked to resign? And what I can tell you about that is that our legal counsel has scoured the documents and gone over the timeline and all of the evidence. And what they have said to us is that our search committee, now this is a paraphrase, not a quote, but our search committee has done more or less what any reasonable person could be asked to do in that situation. And they concluded that there was little, if no legal liability to the search committee and those members of the search committee that are still on staff with us.
Well, it came to light a year ago. In fact, next Sunday will be the 1-year anniversary of this news. But a year ago, next week, it came to light that Robert Morris had sexually assaulted a 12-year-old girl for 4 straight years. The search committee was brought, the fact that Cindy Clemenshire was 12 years old, that was brought to their attention. They found out, they heard in an interview with a family member that Cindy was 12 years old. And they immediately called the elders at Gateway Church and told them. And the elders of Gateway Church said, we're aware of that. It's been handled. Her family, her pastor has given Robert a thumbs up. They've gone through a process of restoration, and there's nothing left to do. It's already been reported.
There was no restoration. The family had not given a thumbs up. Even if they had, the New Life leadership still allowed Robert Morris to be installed as an overseer of the church.
Robert Morris used to be the overseer of New Life Church, and we've had quite the last couple of months here in Colorado Springs with New Life. And we now have Brady Boyd, who's, was very well connected to Robert Morris, resigned from New Life Church as a senior pastor. What does this RICO case, if any, have any implication to New Life Church in Colorado Springs?
I would need to refresh my recollection in regard to the allegations with New Life.
Well,
I
essentially,
remember.
yeah. Well, sorry to interrupt you. Did you want me to let you
No,
finish
go
there?
ahead and tell me, because
Well,
I remember
yeah.
it was the cover up, and that they were claiming they didn't know about Robert Morris, and that Brady Boyd didn't allegedly know, but the allegation was he did know, and they brought him on anyway. Is it that
Exactly.
context?
That
Okay.
that is exactly what happened. And now Brady Boyd is gone, and they've fired the elders that were proven in the court affidavits to have known. And so now we're in a situation where we have allegedly a board that doesn't know, which I don't buy, and a senior pastor that allegedly doesn't know or has never been asked to know. And I don't think that applies. So I'm just curious to know, now that there's this connection between New Life Church and Robert Morris being an overseer, and Brady Boyd, being mentioned in the court affidavits as someone that did know, and now that this is in a RICO case, is there any potential fallout for New Life?
There could be. Think of it like this. It's very similar to the allegations against Robert Morris, and all of his buddies at Gateway Church, that they were intentionally hiding the fact that he had SA'd a 12-year-old so that they could continue to run their church, make their money, sell their products, sell their books. So, similarly, in order to get Brady Boyd here, because we know that, this could be the argument. I'm just saying, this could
Sure.
be the premise. In
I'm
order
all
to
ears.
get him here, people know who he is. He's going to sell books. Yeah, we're aware that he's aware of this criminal act, and we're covering it up so that we can do these things and gain money. If there's an attorney out there and they have a class of people, or even a couple plaintiffs that have standing, yeah, there could be a lawsuit against them.
I mean, I think that when you give your tithes and offerings, and you give a portion of your money, there should be an expectation that you know where your money is going. I think that's an expectation that is very reasonable for the vast majority of the public. I think that when they give their dollars, they want to make sure that that money's going where it's supposed to. And we've seen for years nonprofits come under the limelight, under the microscope of, hey, why is 85% of your donations going to administrative costs? Same with school districts. And I think people are kind of fed up, and they want to know that the money that they're being taxed for, the money that they're giving willfully, that money is actually going to where they say it's supposed to go. And so while I do echo the idea that, hey, we need to continue to protect religious liberties in this country, and I think that's a very important part, I don't see this case being a case that is attacking our First Amendment right to practice our religion freely.
Yeah, although religious organizations are not required to file a 990, the IRS does provide recommendations for 501c3 to follow, including publishing their financial statements online to encourage an environment of transparency with the public. Yet so many don't do this. And I find that interesting, because if anyone's ever been around megachurch culture, and I've been to a lot of these churches, when I've visited looking for churches, whatever the case may be, almost all of them are proud of their generosity. Almost all of them make sure to take time out of the service to say all of these amazing things that we're doing with your tithe money, and how they're a force for good in the community. In many cases, they are. The point that Katherine and I are making here is that if that's your modus operandi, why aren't you following through when it comes to proving it, when it's time to actually show the receipts? Why do so many choose to advertise that they're generous yet never follow the IRS recommendation, or just in good common sense faith, here's what we're doing with the funds? I mean, Wall Street does this by law when they're public. You have to disclose your financials. But for some reason in megachurch America, we don't have that standard, and and again, it's not legally mandated, but it doesn't pass the logical muster test. 501c3s must not operate for the benefit of private interests such as those of its founders, the founder's family, its shareholders, or persons controlled by such interests. Katherine goes on to state that a Section 501c3 organization must not be organized or operated for the benefit of private interests, such as the creator or the creator's family, shareholders of the organization, other design individuals, or persons controlled directly or indirectly by such private interests. No part of the net earnings of a Section 501c3 organization may inure to the benefit of any private shareholder or individual. A private shareholder or individual is a person having a personal and private interest in the activities of the organization. So Katherine Leach, in light of that IRS byline, states, I wonder if Gateway Church's books would reveal numbers that reflect quite the opposite. I mean, how else would Robert Morris be able to amass approximately $117 million in wealth? It's a good question. Because if you're a 501c3 and the law requires you to be doing this for altruistic purposes, is the implication here. This is not a family business. If you want to run a family business, go do what I did and what the men next to me did, and go file an LLC and be for profit. But what these guys are doing, and what it's appearing to do, is they form a church, they amass $117 million in personal net worth, tell everybody how generous they are, hide behind a 501c3, and tell their congregation and the law, go fly a kite. We're not going to tell you what we're going to do. What we will tell you is we're a very generous church. Period. End of story. Yeah, there's a documentary that I want to point out to people. It's called The Religion Business. It's a 7-part docuseries directed by Emmy Award-winning Nathan Apfel. It basically goes right into this. He's exploring the issues of financial accountability and transparency within churches and ministries, and he's got some incredible content where he's out in the parking lot, I think, of Kenneth Copeland's church, and security's dragging him out like a criminal.
Yep.
And the guy is just asking, hey, where is the tithe
tithe's
money
going.
going?
I just
How
tied.
much? How
Yeah.
much does the pastor make? I don't think that that's an inappropriate question
Right.
for a church congregant. I don't understand. It's incredibly what the Gen Z would call sus, that these guys would just deflect this question. I mean, especially when their modus operandi is constantly going up on stage and saying, look at all these amazing things we're doing. Look at who we just gave all this money to. Look at all this amazing things we're doing. Many churches remind us every single time, and right before tithing starts, we are the church that uses your tithe money for our community. I mean, this is something that they literally brand themselves on. So it's incredibly suspicious that when we actually ask for the receipts, we ask for the books and say, okay, time to pony up. Where is this money actually going? How much does the pastor make? Does he have a housing allowance? Are there benevolent funds? Are there, slush funds? What does the budget look like? And they just immediately want to shut you down. And then if you actually show up in their parking lot, they break the law. The security unlawfully detained Nathan, the director of religion business, in the documentary. So all of this just looks incredibly suspicious. Yeah, Katherine Leach said that a friend of hers was actually prevented from entering Gateway Church by armed guards. This was after she and Katherine had an in-person meeting with Gateway lead elder Tra Wilbanks and who was a fill-in after Robert left, Lorena Valle. Although Mr. Wilbanks may stand on Gateway's stage and say they welcome people to ask questions, her experience was quite the opposite. They may extend an invitation to ask questions, but it doesn't necessarily mean they have an intention of answering them. That is so true, because after this broke at New Life, Daniel Grothy and the elders went before New Life Church and said, we are here to answer any questions. Just pull up, come talk to us. We're here for you. And not one, not three, not five, but dozens of people that I personally know and others that I've attended church with posted on Facebook, sent me personal text messages saying they went to Daniel, they went to the leadership, and guess what? They weren't open to a conversation. They were brushed off. In one case, actually more than one case, they were treated rudely, and they were told, here's a pamphlet, there's going to be a meeting, shut up, essentially. So this is just consistent with this posturing on stage of, yeah, we're open, we're willing to have conversations. But my experience and Catherine's experience is that this isn't actually true. They're just saying these things on stage, but when the rubber meets the road, they're not interested in talking. And she goes on to say that this is one of the reasons why she filed this class action lawsuit as a last resort. And although that seemed to get their attention, it's been over a year and we are still waiting for answers to our specific questions. It hasn't happened yet, and it's been a year. Crazy. There's a verse that says in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 3 through 4, and this is why I would like to end personally, is it says, "For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lusts shall they heap to themselves teachers, having itching ears, and they shall turn away their ears from the truth and shall be turned unto fables." And I would argue that that verse applies to the thousands of people that continue to sit in Gateway Church, to the thousands of people that sit in New Life Church, that are part of Facebook groups that say, I stand with Brady Boyd, a man who lied to his congregation. That when you're dealing with thousands of people in the church that are taking these positions, I do believe that the time has come. We are living in a 2 Timothy 4 generation, but we're having these shows and we're having these conversations because not everybody will be lost to this. There will be a remnant, and there will be some people who will look and see what's happening and will say, I'm not going to stay in this church anymore because this does not reflect the Great Commission. This is not the church that Jesus Christ had built nor intended to build.
I agree. That's so well said.
Katherine Leach says, so true. It continues to boggle her mind how so many people defend this kind of behavior. She chalks it up to them not truly knowing Jesus or the heart of God. If they did, there's no way that they would turn a blind eye to sexual abuse and corruption. Over the past year, she's asked herself many times, with over 100,000 attendees, where are all the people from Gateway demanding accountability and transparency? I echo Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who said, silence in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. How's that for a short? Dietrich Bonhoeffer? Oh, you want me to repeat it? Yeah, out of respect for Bonhoeffer. So Katherine Leach says, this is so true. It continues to boggle her mind how so many people defend this kind of behavior. She chalks it up to them not truly knowing Jesus or the heart of God. If they did, there's no way they would turn a blind eye to sexual abuse and corruption. Over the past year, she's asked herself many times, with over 100,000 attendees, where are all the people from Gateway demanding accountability and transparency? She echoes Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who said, silence in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act.
Yeah, I just think it only takes one, right? It only takes one of these cases, one of these allegations, one of these charges to make a difference and to ripple down the chain. And I hope that this is that one case. I hope that there's other pastors, other church leaders that are listening into this episode right now or listening into whatever we do and go, hey, we should take heed of this. And we said for a long time, in fact, we called out churches to start their own Doge, right? Department of Church Efficiency.
Doke.
But look at it and go, okay, are we spending our money wisely? I mean, these are dollars that are gifts. And you should be looking at them as if they're God's, not your own, right? And they belong to the Lord. And so what you do with them, I think, is really critical. And so just to spend it unwisely, to spend it however you feel, to, throw it away on a private jet to, hurt it.
Multiple jets.
Yeah, multiple jets in many cases. It's just absurd.
Yeah, Katherine Leach says they are all 100% God's, and we will be held accountable for how we steward them. This is yet another reason why she wrote her letter and provided the link that she provided above. Who makes an infomercial out of something as sacred as God's tithe? Wow. Just wow. And she felt led to formally take Robert Morris and Gateway Church up on their money back guarantee, which became a part of this class action lawsuit and eventual RICO claim. The defendants only have themselves to thank for all this. Cindy's criminal and civil lawsuits and their class action and RICO claim. They've enjoyed decades of grace. Enough is enough. Time's up. Justice is coming. Robert Morris, justice came to you, brother. I have a message for all the megachurch pastors, all the leadership across the country. Repent. Turn away from your sin. Jesus is coming back for a stainless, spotless church. You are going to be held to a higher standard. Repent and turn away. Do the right thing, guys, because we will force your hand. We being the church. We are the church. God is the head of the church. He's coming back for a stainless, spotless church. Repent or get out of the way.